Thank you. Wow, thank you very much. What a wonderful morning it is, outside and inside. It's a blessing to be here. You cannot imagine how blessed I am to see so many beautiful young faces. 1.5 million of those beautiful faces were perished. Why am I here today? For the same reason I was somewhere else yesterday. To bring awareness of the power of hate. You're going to hear me speak about the Nazi bullies, but I'm not saying that every German was a Nazi. Every German was not a Nazi, and every Nazi was not a German. What you're going to see on the screen is not a video game. It wasn't created by a famous Hollywood director. That massacre was produced by an Austrian, Adolf Hitler. I'm going to share with you where I was 70 years ago and how I got into a hole in Germany as a slave laborer. But before then, I need to speak about current issues. And those issues gets us where we are. Today, when I leave your school, I will leave with hope in my heart. Hope that I touch one of yours. One. I'm going to ask you, please show me how many of you use the word hate. Don't be shy, just put your hands up. Thank you. My hand didn't go up. It's not because I'm shy. By the time you get to my age, you're not shy anymore. I don't use the word hate. Why? Hate is a killer. If any one of you think that hate is a joke, you need to reset your thinking. For 15 years, I was babysitting my 3 grandchildren while my son and his wife were teaching. I never allowed my grandchildren to use the word hate. What I taught my grandchildren is to say, I don't like. Now, what is it I don't like? I don't like it when I'm called names. Do you? And I don't like it when I'm pushed around. But I don't hate. Often I'm asked, what was the cause of the Holocaust? One word, hate. My next question is, how many of you have been bullied? I have been bullied. I was bullied by the Nazi bullies. I was 19 when they bullied me. Why? I had the wrong hair color, or the wrong nail polish, or I was too thin or too fat. No. Because I'm Jewish, that's why they bullied me. What I cannot understand, why Canadian children bully each other. Well, let me share with you a high school in Ottawa, St. Patrick's Catholic High School. Here is what one female student answered at that question. She said, there is no acceptance. And I happen to believe her. How come that most of your ancestors came to Canada from other countries and they were accepted? What does it mean to be a Canadian? What does it mean to be a Canadian? I know what it means to be a Canadian for 64 years next month. What it means to me is accepting the values that Canada represents. There is no room in my heart for hate or bullies or bystanders. How do I know if someone is a Canadian? I know by their behavior. You don't need to tell people you're a Canadian. You need to show. Be proud. That's what it means to be a Canadian, to be proud. When my grandson was in grade 10, also a large high school in Ontario, he was also bullied. The bully in the hallway called him a stupid Jew. I didn't bother my grandson. A, he doesn't suffer of low self-esteem. B, he knows who he is. If you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're heading. His mom's parents are Catholic. I am the one that are Jewish, so therefore he has to be a stupid Jew. So now what happens to a 15-year-old? He didn't go to the principal. What he did, he went to the newspaper. Why was that? He wanted the whole community to read, a community of 16,000, to read what happened in his high school. And what happened to the teacher that came a bystander? He was short-lived. Parents did not want their children to be taught by a bystander. What he did, he gave the power to the bully by remaining silent. And that's what we do. When we watch somebody hurting somebody else, whether it's physically or emotionally, we give the power to the bullies. That stupid Jew at 17 entered Queen's University in Ontario. At 21, he graduated with 2 degrees, human biology and kinesiology. Now, you have to be pretty stupid to achieve that, don't you think so? The point I'm trying to make here, why are we so eager to label people? Why? Do we have the right to judge people by their religion, or color of their skin, or shape of eyes, or any other origin? We are not God. When we judge others, invariably we judge ourselves. It's okay to be black or white or Asian or Muslim. That shouldn't affect anyone. What affects every one of us, it's our attitude, the attitude that we carry in our hearts. That's what affects us. Hitler could not have done what he did without the bystanders of Eastern Europe. It wasn't the one-man job. That's how he got away with it. In 1928, there were 300 Nazi bullies in Eastern Europe. By 1933, there were 300,000. The bystanders joined in with the perpetrators. There are no innocent bullies or bystanders. They're both guilty. Don't go there, please. You have your whole life ahead of you. The choices you have made yesterday is affecting you today. And the choices you are going to make today will affect you tomorrow. But they are your choices. In 1939, Germany occupied Poland. I was a young teenager living in Hungary, very naive, thinking the war will be over soon. When you are young, you are blessed. I had very little knowledge. The war didn't end soon. In fact, it lasted 6 years. In those 6 years, 6 million Jewish people were murdered, 5 million others that were not Jews were also murdered, including Catholic priests were hung in Poland. Why did they hang them? They were hiding Jewish children. Somebody was squealing on them, and they murdered them. Nuns were murdered for the same reason. As I mentioned in the beginning, 1.5 million children under the age of 15, some of them even 16, if they were short or disabled. 5 of those children were my nieces. 5 little girls, 3.5, 2 years old, 1 year, 6 months, and 2 months old. I made it my mission to speak for them and all other children whose voices were silenced by hate. They cannot speak for themselves. Somebody has to. March the 19th, Germany occupied Hungary. Now, my mom and dad didn't have money to buy a house. So at that time, they rented 2 rooms. We had no electricity, no indoor plumbing, and there were 19 of us in 2 rooms, and we shared 1 wooden toilet outside for 19 people. Some of us had to sleep on the floor. There weren't enough beds. And that was okay. It was okay, because I had a mom. I had a dad. I had 2 brothers. I had 2 sisters. Originally, I had 3 sisters. My older sister, her name was Sarah. She died in January of 1944, and she left 3 little girls, and we looked after them. So the family at that point were all together. It didn't last very long. May the 15th, we were ordered to pack our bags. They told us we are about to be shipped to Germany to work in a brick factory. Brick factory? Okay. They lined us up outside and marched us to the railway station, which was 7 kilometers away. Where am I pointing to? 7 kilometers to get to the railway station. Somebody asked me yesterday if the community, what was their reaction? Well, the Hungarian people were lined up like a Santa Claus parade, watching how they took us out of the city. What happened in the boxcars? We were packed in like sardines in a can. Standing room only. There were 2 pails. One had water in it for drinking for about 100 to 110 people. And the other pail was to be used as a toilet. Now, can you imagine, for the young females here, I was raised in a very high Orthodox environment. I never ever saw my brothers in underwear. Now you have to pull your pants down to sit on a pail in front of strangers. People were praying, people were crying. A 4-day hell, standing day and night for 4 days. May the 19th, we arrived at destination. Now they said they'd take us to Germany to work in a brick factory. Auschwitz-Birkenau? Where is Auschwitz? I'm 19, I've never heard of Auschwitz. I knew of a country called Poland. Probably my parents did, but they sheltered us and didn't tell us everything that they knew. It didn't take very long to find out where Auschwitz was and what they did there. As soon as the cattle cars were unbolted from the outside, some people had a sigh of relief. Now we're going to have water and fresh air. There was neither. The air that hit us was nauseating. Black smoke covered the skies, high towers, machine guns, electric fences, guards everywhere. At that point, I turned to my mom and I said, where do we work here? This doesn't look like a brick factory. Auschwitz-Birkenau was a killing factory. At that point, I held the hand of my oldest niece. Her name was Judy, a tiny little blonde girl. When my sister died, I made a commitment I will raise her. My mom had a 1-year-old grandchild on her arm. Her name was Hetty, and the 2-year-old Kathy was hanging on to my mom's skirt. And beside my mom was my sister-in-law with a 2-month-old baby girl. My sister Regina had a 6-month-old baby girl. A prisoner came over. He whispered so the guards wouldn't hear him. In Yiddish, that's the only language we spoke at home. Give the child to an older woman. He didn't tell me why. And I wasn't about to let go of her hand, not until he came back the 3rd time. Had I not let go of Judy's hand, I wouldn't be standing here. I would have gone where most of my family went. But at that point, I didn't know where. It didn't take very long to find out. So we were ordered to line up, and we marched towards the gate, where the angel of death was standing, Dr. Joseph Mengele. He didn't speak to us. He had a wand in his hand, and with that he pointed in the direction he wanted us to go, left or right. Now, why are we being separated from our families? Nobody told us. My younger sister, 1 month short of being 17, she was born in June. Another healthy-looking young female, 16 and older, were ordered to the right. All other people to the left. So I turned my head to the left because I wanted to see where my mom was. But it was too late. For me, it was too late. How I wished I could have given my mom a hug and tell her how much I love her. I wanted to tell my mom, I'm sorry that I disobeyed you, but it was too late. I hope in my heart that for some of you in here, it's not too late. I'm asking you, please, make a commitment to yourself that you will never ever go to bed angry like I did, crying, because my mom wouldn't let me go somewhere. We cannot resolve issues with anger. Dialogue helps. But it was too late. My mom was 49, and here is the reason why I never saw her again. Never. That's where she was waiting. They gathered them in the forest, and on arrival, after 2 hours, they were murdered. When I was a prisoner there, I used to ask myself, who could do this? Animals? Animals don't do that to each other. People do. Now we need to ask ourselves, what kind of people? People that carry hate in their heart. Hate. What happens to hate if it's left unchecked? It turns into rage. That gives you the power to commit genocide. What happened in the gas chambers? They were forced into those gas chambers, screaming and moaning, and after 20 minutes it was silent. It was dead silent. It took 20 minutes for them to die in there. Powdered Zyklon B with other chemicals were used to produce cyanide. When they unlocked the doors, they found that children were always in the bottom of the pile with their heads crushed because the adult bodies fell on them. Our hair was cut off in the bathhouse. When the dead women were pulled out of the gas chamber, their hair was cut off. Why would they cut off dead women's hair? Tons of human hair were shipped to Germany to manufacture felt, like horse blankets, and socks for the U-boat soldiers. If somebody's ring didn't come off the finger came off with it. And then came the crematorium, the ovens, and that's what we smelled day and night. human flesh burning. I had a principal once asking me, when did you find out what happened there? 2 days. That smoke from 5 chimneys never stopped coming out day or night. In the barrack, there were prisoners for 2 years already from Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Poland since 1942. And they informed us what they had experienced and what happened there in 2 years prior us being there. That's how I found out. Out in the field, there are half a dozen bullies waiting, the ultimate bullies, ordering us to take our clothes off. Why? They didn't tell us. If you had a healthy body, you were sent into the bathhouse. If you had some images or a scar from surgery, you were sent somewhere else and never to be seen again, never. They gave us a gray blanket, took us to the Hungarian women's camp, and we're lining up for our daily ration. 1 piece of bread, 70% sawdust. Soup was like dirty water. Why was it dirty? It was made out of the potatoes, the peeling of the potatoes that were not washed. 4:30 in the morning, every morning, no exception, roll call. One morning, they ordered 2 prisoners to go to the kitchen to bring the soup. I was one of them. And when we got back, one of the supervisors asked, "Did you bring surprise soup today?" Surprise soup? Oh, it was surprise, all right. It had tufts of human hair in it and bones. In a barrack where there were 500 male prisoners for 2 years already. That's the only soup they had to eat. They used to riot over that soup. When I see children in some plazas throwing their lunches into the trash can, I find it very upsetting. Why? Because I've seen prisoners eating grass just to survive another day. Dr. Joseph Mengeles Experiment Hospital, where they experimented on 4,000 twins. 90% of those children were Jewish. All Jewish children that were alive in Eastern Europe until 1939, 90% were murdered. Some of those twins were sewn together back to back to see how long they can survive. Eyes were switched in there, a blue one with a brown one. They were injected with tuberculosis and other viruses. Through radiation and high voltage, they made sure that a male will never father a child and that a female will never bear one. Approximately 148 survived. For those of the students in here would like to find out more about what they did to those twins, please click in on the website, The Alphabet of Auschwitz. You'll find it. Now, I said in the beginning that every German was not a Nazi. What you see on the screen was carried out in 1942 by the Romanian Nazis, the Black Iron Guard. What is it, that train? A train that has no destination. It just goes up and down the tracks till people perish in the sealed boxcar. Sole survivor, one man. Mass execution in the capital of Hungary. In September of 2007, filmmaker from Toronto, his wife and my book editor flew into the capital of Hungary. At the hotel, they told us to go down to the river. There is a memorial there. And I was devastated for what I found. Ukrainian police, they were given orders by the Gestapo. If a mother holds a baby in her arm, shoot the baby. And the bullet will go through to the mother. You save a bullet that way. In September of 1942, in 2 days, 32,000 men and women and children were murdered. They were shot one by one. Often I'm asked by students if I ever tried to run away. And I tell my audience to count how many guards are standing around while one human being is being shot. The chances of running away weren't very good. I never tried it. But I'm also asking you, please, don't go out and judge people. I have been asked by students, if you see a German, do you hate them? I don't have hate in my heart. And I am not angry with any German. The issues are with the Nazis. Bear that in mind. We cannot go and judge. In every one of these countries, there were good people there. But there were some of them that were not so good. So what was missing in those countries? Compassion. Had there been compassion among those nations, you would not see those slides. And I wouldn't be standing here, because they would have acted like Bulgaria did. Bulgaria was also occupied, but they weren't going to be bystanders. The bishop, the churches, the farmers. It was a community effort to stand up against injustice. They did not allow the Nazi trains to live with the Jewish people. Compassion. Denmark also protected the Jewish population. They weren't going to be bystanders either. Children that come into this school from a compassionate environment will never be a bully, never, or a bystander, because those children, no matter what the origin is, were taught preschool the value of having respect for others. Respect is something we cannot buy. We earn it. So where does respect start? With him or her? It starts with the self. If I don't have respect for myself, how can I ever have respect for you? It always starts with the self. It's the same with love. More women than men died in Auschwitz-Birkenau. What was their sin? They were moms. They had children. Like in any war, children and women are the first victims. My father was 48. He was healthy. He was sent to slave labor camp. And that's where he died. In September of 1944, December, pardon me. He only lived 6 months. He died of starvation. Now, I know that every one of you in here understand that people die. Some people die of natural causes. Some people die of various diseases. And there are those unfortunate that die by various accidents. So what happens in time? We learn to deal with those losses. What I have not yet been able to deal with, 11 million people died, not because they were told to live, or died in an avalanche, or had cancer, or a heart attack. So what killed them? One word: hate. Hate that silenced the voices of 11 million people. Is that acceptable? Never. Unless there are those that condone genocide. I would like you to do something, please. Not for me, for yourself. Show me how many of you say to another person, I hate you. I know people are doing it. I hear it all the time. Thank you for being honest. Thank you. Here is what I would like to see happening. When we have the urge to say to another person, I hate you, just stop long enough that you can count to 10. And that's not very difficult, is it? But while you're counting, think about a person your own age that died because that person was hated. What you're doing when you do that, you're taking your mind off yourself and realize that life is not about a capital I or me. Life is about we, together as one people. Because that is the only way that this generation in front of me will ever achieve peace, together as one people, created by the same God. We all travel with the same passport through this universe. All of us. Try to replace that word, that ugly word, with love. And that's what you need to pass down to the generation to follow you. "2,000 young female prisoners from Auschwitz-Birkenau were about to begin a new journey, slave labor camp. Well, they took us to a city in Germany called Düsseldorf. and they dumped us in a field, like a soccer field. The grass didn't grow there. And where did they sleep? On the ground. There were no buildings inside. You had a choice. You can put the blanket down to lie on it, or you cover yourself with it at night. And what happened if it rained all night? Your guess is as good as it will ever be. They put up some shelter, which was pop tents. The kind of pop tent you put over a picnic table so your food wouldn't get wet. It was okay for us to be wet. 4:30 in the morning, outside. They counted us because it was an open field, and if somebody would have run away or tried to escape, I wouldn't be here. And the reason for that is what the Nazis believed, one for all and all for one. We were safe. And we had to unload bricks from freight ships. That was the first Steel Weber camp. A few weeks later, 520 prisoners were taken to the capital of the Rhine, Essen, where we worked for the crop manufacturers that manufactured ammunition. That was a blessing. Why? Because we were fed in the factory and not by the Nazis. And they had a soft camp, barracks and bunks, a kitchen and water, and that was heaven. It didn't last very long, though, because the Allies were bombing very heavily late summer of 1944. Daytime, nighttime, anytime. And we were scared. We were happy they came, but we were scared. One day, they made us halt near a walk. The air raid sounded, the planes are going to come. I overheard a little boy. I understood German because I spoke Yiddish, and that's very similar. He was calling his mom, "Come and see, the idiots are coming." You know something? Even at 90, I've never seen an idiot. Neither did he, because there isn't one. I have seen children, and adults as well, that are challenged. But I've never seen an idiot. Can you be angry at a little boy? No. Because that little boy had a good teacher. And I'm not talking about the grade 1 or grade 2 teacher. We are the first teachers. Children learn by example. And that's how we teach, by example. Never ever is a child born racist. Never. It's a learned attitude. So does a young child pick up a negative attitude by his grade 1 or grade 2 teacher? That doesn't happen. He brings his attitude into school, and then your teachers have to deal with it. Tonight I'm going to speak to parents in Hannah, and I'm going to tell them what their responsibilities are to their children. We are into October 1944. This happened to be the 3rd week. Every day we worked till it got dark, except on Sunday. This evening, they marched us back to the camp, and we had a big surprise. Everything had burned to the ground. That day, the Allies had thrown small little bombs called phosphorus bombs. As they fall to the ground, they ignite and spread like wildfire. All the buildings were made out of wood, and they burned to the ground. That night, They put us in a hole in the ground. A hole that was dug out from underneath the kitchen. No light, totally dark. There was some straw down there. And some of us in Eastern Europe used to have root cellars that were just dug out. No lights, no wall, nothing. And they used to put straw down there, and that's where they stored some root vegetables, like potatoes, carrots, or whatever. That's where they put us for the winter. What happened down there? The straw started to rot. Those young female prisoners did not go outside after it got dark. By that time, we were familiar with those bullies' pastime activities. Rape. They didn't come into that hole because the sanitary conditions were appalling. We slept down there like pigs. And we also used the straw down there as toilets. No water, no toilet paper. By now we had a new challenge, body lice. Now I knew of head lice. I've never heard of body lice. Or I found out soon enough. You can check it out on the internet, how different they are from head lice. And now we're into January 1945. There's snow on the ground, and we're still marching to work. What were the conditions? We were wet, we were dirty, we had no socks, we had no underwear. When they took all our clothes away in Auschwitz, they gave us a pair of wooden clogs, but no socks. And they didn't ask us what size. Those were the conditions. Blisters. In the factory, we heard from some of the German civilians that they're going to take us away from there. And the reason for that was the Russian forces were coming closer to that part of Germany. They didn't want us to be free, so they took us away. And that was the final journey. Bergen-Belsen, Anne Frank and her sister Margot died there. The barrack my sister and I ended up in, there wasn't a chair to sit on or a bunk to lie on. All prisoners were on the floor. What kind of floor? A floor that was covered with diarrhea, lice. The kind of diarrhea that adults call dysentery. You get dysentery, that's a tummy infection caused by drinking dirty water. What you see on the screen is a British soldier bulldozing the corpses from the hills into trenches. I went to one of those trenches. I wanted to see if I would recognize the face. You wouldn't even know they were once human. Yet every one of them had a name once, and they were part of a loved one, just like you are. As I walked away from that area, I saw a young girl wobbling. She was very badly skeletoned. She was about my sister's age. Her face looked a little bit familiar. So I went close up to her and I recognized her. That girl who lived a block away from where we lived, I was in total shock to see what she looked like. She was also my younger brother's secret girlfriend. Why secret? In my family, my 3 siblings got married through matchmaking. We weren't allowed to date. But my brother and I shared our secrets, and he dated that girl. I was in total shock to see what she looked like. We were taken away on the same transport. I managed to ask her, "Have you seen anyone of my family?" She said, "Yes, I saw Lazar." Lazar was 18. She said in a camp, pushing a cart with other prisoners. I lost it at that point and walked away. A couple of days later, I went out to look for her because I wanted to know which camp my brother was in. But it was too late. That's where she ended up. And the reason I'm sharing with you this, for those that have siblings, and I know even all over, no matter if it's Ontario or Quebec or Manitoba or wherever it is, children fight each other, they bully each other, siblings. Oh, it's a joke, it's a this, it's not. I want to say this to you. I would give anything if my brother would have survived. Appreciate what you have. Be grateful that you have siblings. Who is right or who is wrong shouldn't really matter. You don't know how lucky you are to have siblings. How empty money or possessions does not fill that hole that's empty. Because you don't have any siblings. Siblings that you had, but they were murdered. $104,000 died in Bergen-Belsen. Starvation, dehydration, disease. I also got very sick there with a high fever. My body was covered with large red spots. At home where we had a fever, my mom would wear a towel and put it on her head to bring the fever down. What do you do if you have no water? I urinated on a rag. That wasn't the bad part. The bad part was when there was no more urine, because that's where he ended up. It's humanly impossible for the body to give up something that we don't put in. Something we take for granted every day, only till we don't have it anymore. And we didn't. 6 days before the Allies came in, the Gestapo had given orders, zero supply. What did you get to eat there while I was there? There was no sawdust bread or any other bread. One metal mug of the same dirty water we had in Auschwitz. They took it away, and the reason for that was they wanted to speed up our death. They knew that the Allies were nearby. How did he survive this for 6 days? 104,000 didn't. How did I survive? I took the legacy my mom passed down to me with me to the camps. And that's what I passed down to my sister. Never, ever to give up hope. Never. Courage and the will to live. Compassion for a human life. That's what she passed down to me. I wasn't supposed to be born because she was sick. But she didn't want to have an abortion. So she stayed in bed for 8 months. So I could be here today and talk about my mom, what kind of person she was, and the legacy that she passed down to me. That gave me the opportunity to pass down to my son, and that gave him the opportunity to pass down to his 3 children. That's what kept me alive. My mom. And that's why I'm asking you, please, never ever be disrespectful. Never. You only have one mom. April 15th, 11 o'clock in the morning, we were liberated by the British and Canadians that came in from Holland. I knew I was free. Free from being killed, but never ever free from the memory of it, of such a crime against humanity. There have been many wars through the centuries, but never in written history has there been such a premeditated, systematic annihilation. Never. There have been religious wars, territorial wars, but this was a war of racism. Some of your ancestors have been through those wars. Some of your ancestors know about annihilation and genocide. Please, I'm asking you, those that are of that generation, be a proud person and make sure you pass down for what they fought for. Don't let it die. That's your responsibility. I cannot change the past. The power lies in your hands. So is the future. This is not about me. This is about you. For those in here that have younger siblings at home, what they learn from you today is what they're going to bring into this school tomorrow. I hope in my heart that you are a proud brother or sister, and you be sure you're making right choices. Then you can be proud when you're an adult. I was in Ohio at the state prison. 3 hours. The guards were there. The warden was there. But only 300 out of the 1,800 were allowed in this great hall because it was high security. But every prisoner had a chance through being, it was televised. But here is what I brought with me. One young man, here is what he had to say. Who is going to tell us when your generation is gone? And the other inmate had this to say, if I would have known you before, I wouldn't be in here. Because I spoke about choices we make, and those choices we make takes us where we are. They made choices, and that's why they were in there. In October of 1945, I met a young Swede. And what were the challenges? Religion. I'm Jewish, he was not. He was going to school to become an engineer. I'm 21 that month, and I've never yet been inside a classroom. I make up for it now, though. My parents were fundamentalists and didn't allow us to go to school. So you have a religion, education, and social status, like night and day. And what is the moral of this? For every young person to think about. That young Swede didn't lock me out because I was different. What happens when we lock other people out? You might lock out your best friend you will have in your entire life. Rudy was my best friend I ever had. And I say had. My husband had a short journey. In Ontario, at age 35, he was hit by someone who was drinking and driving. Two and a half years later, he passed away from those injuries before he turned 38. I still have one blessing left, our 10-year-old son. And out of that blessing came 3 more blessings, my grandchildren. I feel truly blessed. And the legacy that my husband left behind has traveled across with me, across Canada and part of the United States. He gave me a gift many, many years ago, the kind of gift you cannot buy with money. And that kind of gift is the only thing that's worth having. Things that we buy, very often we get tired of it, or we grow out of it, or we don't want it anymore. And that is the only thing that I have to bring into your school and give to you. Just as my husband gave to me. Unconditional acceptance and love for another human being, no matter how different. I hope in my heart that you will accept that gift. On condition that you will pass it on to other children. And why is that important? Because you're the last generation that will ever be part of this type of assembly. Your children never will. Never. Don't let it die. Please. Share it with others. Share what you're feeling today, at this moment. Whatever it might be, I can't tell you what it is. You know what it is. Because from today on, maybe it's not going to happen today, but sometime in your lifetime, you will remember this day. because this is the day we shall never forget. Never. For 50 years, I was silent, out of fear. I became aware that silence does not heal. Over 1.5 million listeners across Canada and the States has helped me to heal. Today was your turn. You're part of my healing process, and therefore every one of you will always be in my heart. I will never forget you, never. I'm grateful for all of the school divisions across Canada that have given me this opportunity to come and visit your schools and allowing me to keep my family spirit alive. I couldn't do it without you. I want you to know that. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.